Hello, my name is Isla. I want to tell you something that completely changed the way I learned English. It's a bit unusual, but it worked like magic for me. You know what it was? My mirror. Yes, my mirror became my English-speaking friend. At first, it was just a shiny piece of glass. But soon, it became my conversation partner, my teacher, my coach, and my biggest support. If you're learning English and don't have anyone to talk to, maybe it's time you meet your new friend in the mirror. For the longest time, I felt like I was living in two worlds. One was the real world, where I went to school, ran errands, helped my mother in the kitchen, and spoke my native language all day. The other was the dream world, the world of English. I had always loved the way English sounded. I would hear people in movies speak it so naturally, so smoothly, with that confident rhythm. I wanted to sound like that. I wanted to express my feelings, my thoughts, my dreams in English, but reality was hard. Whenever I tried to speak English out loud, I felt like a robot. My tongue didn't know what to do. I would freeze mid-sentence, forget simple words, and end up repeating the same few phrases again and again. And worst of all, I had no one to practice with. No friend, no teacher, no partner, just me. I remember one evening very clearly. I was standing in front of my bathroom mirror, brushing my teeth, when I looked at my reflection and thought, "You understand me better than anyone." I laughed at myself for thinking that. But deep inside, something clicked. The next morning, I tried something strange. I stood in front of that same mirror, looked at my reflection, and said, "Hello, Isla. How are you today?" It sounded silly. I almost laughed, but I answered, "I'm good. I woke up early today." Then I continued, "I have a lot to do, but I'll try to practice English later." I was talking to myself to the mirror, but it felt good. It felt real. That was the first day I spoke to my mirror. At first, it was hard to keep the conversation going. I would ask a question, then pause, then struggle to think of an answer. My mind was translating from my native language, and I could feel the delay between thought and speech, but I was determined. Every morning after that, I made it a routine. I would brush my hair, wash my face, and talk to my reflection. Simple things like, "Today is a sunny day. I think I'll go for a walk. I feel a little tired, but I'll try to stay positive." Yesterday, I watched a video about how to improve English. It was helpful. At first, I used memorized phrases. I copied what I heard in videos, movies, or podcasts. But slowly, I started building my own sentences. Sometimes I made mistakes. Actually, I made a lot of mistakes. I would say something, then realize, oh no, that verb tense was wrong. But the best part was no one was judging me. My mirror didn't laugh, didn't interrupt, didn't correct me harshly. It just listened. In a world where I felt scared to speak out loud, my mirror became a safe space. I started noticing something unexpected. After a week of this daily mirror talk, my mouth started to get used to English. The words flowed a little more smoothly. My pronunciation improved just a bit. I started using my hands while talking, just like native speakers. I was feeling the language, not just learning it. I would look into my own eyes and say, "You can do this." It was more than just English practice. It became some motivation. That glass reflection started giving me strength. When I looked at myself and spoke in English, I saw a girl who was trying, who was brave enough to do something different. And I respected her. Soon, I began using the mirror to practice conversations. I would imagine situations, like ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or introducing myself to someone new. I would speak both parts like this. "Me. Hi. Could I have a cup of coffee? Please. Waiter, also, me. Sure. Would you like anything else? Me. Yes. One chocolate muffin. It was like playing a game. A role play. But this game was helping me more than any textbook ever did. Sometimes I even got emotional in front of the mirror. On difficult days, I would look into my eyes and say things like, "You're doing your best," or "Don't give up, Isla." I didn't realize it then, but I was building not just my English, but my confidence. The act of speaking out loud, of using my voice, of hearing myself speak, that was powerful. There were awkward moments too. Of course, once, my cousin walked into the room while I was having a deep English conversation with the mirror. She looked confused and asked, "Who are you talking to?" I laughed and said, "My best English friend." She thought I was joking, but I wasn't. Over time, I made my mirror sessions more advanced. I began telling stories from my day, or things I remembered from my childhood. I would describe objects in the room, emotions I was feeling, or books I was reading. I even practiced arguments and debates. Just to challenge myself, the mirror became my stage, my classroom, and my therapy. Some days I only spoke for 5 minutes. Other days, I would talk for half an hour without even noticing. I stopped worrying about mistakes. In fact, I welcomed them. I knew that every mistake I made in front of the mirror was one less mistake I'd make in front of real people. I wasn't afraid to try new vocabulary. I experimented with idioms, phrasal verbs, and even accents, sometimes British one day, American the next. It became a private world where I could grow without fear. One of the biggest surprises came a few months later. I was sitting in a group class, and the teacher asked us to introduce ourselves. When it was my turn, I stood up, smiled, and spoke clearly in English. My hands moved naturally, my voice didn't shake, and my mind didn't freeze. Afterward, one of the students asked me, "How did you learn to speak so confidently?" I smiled and said, "I practiced every day with my mirror." She looked confused at first, then curious. "Really?" "Yes," I said. "It sounds strange, but it works." Looking back now, I can see that using the mirror wasn't just a clever idea. It was a breakthrough. It gave me what every language learner needs: practice, privacy, and patience. It gave me the space to grow slowly, without pressure. And the best part, it was free. No expensive classes, no travel, no tutors, just me, my voice, and my reflection. If someone asked me today, "What's the best way to improve English speaking when you're alone?" I wouldn't hesitate. Talk to your mirror. Make it your friend. Because when no one else is there, your mirror is. And sometimes, that's all you need to become a better version of yourself, not just in English, but in life. Once I discovered that my mirror could be my English-speaking partner, everything started to change. Slowly at first, but with each passing day, I could feel myself growing. And it wasn't just about learning English anymore. It was about building a habit, showing up for myself, and proving that I was capable of something I once feared. I decided to set a goal: speak in English for at least 15 minutes every day. It didn't matter what I talked about. I just had to stand in front of the mirror and speak. No skipping. No excuses. I told myself, "Ela, even if you have nothing interesting to say, even if you're tired or busy, just show up. Just speak." The first week was rough. Some days, I stood there in silence, staring at my reflection, unsure how to begin. Other days, I repeated the same sentences again and again, frustrated by how slowly the words came out. But I didn't give up. I reminded myself, this is not about perfection. It's about progress. I created a small notebook called Mirror Talk Journal. Every day after speaking, I would write down 3 things. What I talked about. What new words I used. One mistake I noticed and how to fix it. That notebook became my progress tracker. It helped me see how far I was coming, even when it felt slow. One morning, I looked at myself and said, "Today, I will describe my entire morning routine in English." And I did. I talked about brushing my teeth, making tea, checking my phone, getting dressed. At first, I stumbled on words like boiled water or tied my hair, but I wrote them down and practiced them later. The next day, I described my favorite childhood memory. The day after that, I pretended I was giving a YouTube speech on how to learn English alone. I imagined I had an audience. I stood tall, spoke clearly, and used body language. It felt silly, but also powerful. The mirror reflected not just my face, but my growth. After about 2 weeks, something amazing happened. I started thinking in English, just a little bit, but it was happening. I would walk around my room and say, "I'm feeling hungry. What should I eat?" Instead of translating it from my native language first, I began narrating my actions while doing chores. Now I'm washing the dishes. These plates are still dirty. I need more soap. It became a game I played with myself. I called it living in English. At night, before bed, I would look in the mirror and talk to myself again. Today was a hard day, I'd say, or I felt proud because I used new vocabulary in my speech. These small moments added up. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was rewiring my brain to speak naturally. I also started setting weekly themes. For example, Week 1, daily life vocabulary, for example, cleaning, eating, walking. Week 2, feelings and emotions: happy, anxious, tired, grateful. Week 3, describing people and places. Week 4, talking about the future and making plans each week. I focused my mirror conversations around those topics. I would challenge myself to use new words, expressions, and sentence structures. I looked up synonyms to avoid repeating the same words. For instance, instead of always saying "I'm happy," I tried "I feel joyful" or "I'm in a good mood." I even started recording some of my mirror talks. It was scary to listen to my own voice in English, but also extremely helpful. I could hear my pronunciation clearly. I could identify where I sounded unsure, where I hesitated, or where my grammar was off. It felt like having a private teacher, except the teacher was me. After a month of daily practice, something inside me shifted. I no longer felt awkward speaking to my reflection. In fact, I looked forward to it. That 15-minute mirror session became my favorite part of the day. It was a time where I could be completely myself. No pressure, no fear. Just expression, learning, and self-growth. My mirror became my best friend, my safe space, and my cheerleader. And with time, something even more magical began to happen. I started feeling confident speaking English in public. Not perfectly, not fluently, but confidently. I wasn't afraid to open my mouth. I wasn't afraid to make mistakes. That fear that used to hold me back, it was slowly disappearing. One afternoon, my neighbor's cousin visited from abroad. She was from Canada, and she spoke only English. I was nervous, but I greeted her. "Hi, I'm Isla. Nice to meet you." She smiled, and we started talking. I told her about my city, asked her questions, and even cracked a joke. When she left, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from excitement. I had done it. I had spoken English with a real native speaker. After she left, I ran to my room, looked into the mirror, and whispered, "You did it. You really did it." My eyes filled with tears. Not just because I had spoken English, but because I had broken my own limits. All those days, All those mirror talks. All that practice, it had paid off. I started sharing this idea with others. Some people laughed, thinking it was strange. Others said, "That's actually brilliant." A few friends even tried it. One of my closest friends, who had always been shy, began doing her own mirror practice after seeing my progress. She told me, "At first I felt stupid, but now, I actually enjoy it." We started exchanging mirror talk topics with each other. We'd challenge each other. Tomorrow, talk about your dream vacation in English. Describe your favorite meal in detail. Pretend you're giving a TED Talk. It became a fun routine. We were both improving without spending money, without traveling abroad, just using our voices, our imagination, and our mirrors. There were still bad days. Days when I felt tired, or made the same mistake again, or couldn't find the right words. On those days, I looked into the mirror and said, "It's okay. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're still learning." And then, I would try again. That kind of self-compassion was something I never had before, but now, I was speaking to myself with kindness. In English. 6 months later, I gave my first short presentation in English at a local language club. I stood in front of 15 people and talked about how to practice English alone. I started my speech with the line, "My mirror became my English-speaking friend." People laughed softly, but by the end, some of them were taking notes. One person said, "I'm going to try that tonight." I walked home that day with the biggest smile on my face. Not because I had impressed anyone, but because I had done something I once believed was impossible. Daily mirror practice didn't just improve my English, it changed my relationship with myself. It taught me that confidence doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from showing up, even when it's hard. It comes from choosing to believe in yourself, one conversation at a time. Now, every time I see a mirror, I don't just see my reflection, I see a friend. A friend who helped me find my voice. When I first began talking to my mirror, I only saw it as a tool to help me practice speaking. But what I didn't realize back then was that I was also starting a relationship with myself. You see, for most of my life, I had been my own worst critic. I was the girl who always doubted herself, who hesitated before speaking, who compared her English to everyone else's and thought, "Why am I still not good enough?" That quiet voice inside my head had always been quick to remind me of what I lacked. But the more I spoke to my mirror, the more that voice began to change. At first, I was simply practicing sentences, describing my day, or pretending to have conversations. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, my sessions started to take on a deeper meaning. I wasn't just practicing English anymore, I was coaching myself. I was listening to myself. And more than anything, I was healing myself. It started subtly. One night I stood in front of the mirror and said, "You're improving, Ela." Slowly, yes, but surely. I looked into my own eyes, and I meant it. That one sentence changed everything. I realized that for the first time in my life, I was not waiting for someone else to tell me I was doing well. I was telling it to myself. I was learning how to become my own source of encouragement, my own coach, my own best friend. The mirror wasn't just a piece of glass anymore. It had become a gateway to transformation. I began using my mirror sessions for more than just vocabulary and grammar. I began practicing self-talk, positive affirmations in English. I would say things like, "I am learning. I am improving every day. I have the courage to speak, even if I make mistakes. Every time I try, I grow stronger." It felt strange at first, saying such kind things to myself. I had never really done that before, in any language. But over time, it became natural. These weren't just empty words. They were the foundation of a new mindset. I started talking about my dreams in English. Some days I would stand in front of the mirror and say things like, "One day I'll travel to England and speak to strangers without fear." Or, "I want to help other learners feel brave, just like I'm trying to be." My mirror became the space where I didn't just practice what I could say, but also who I wanted to become. I began to see myself differently. The girl in the mirror was no longer shy, no longer afraid. She had a sparkle in her eyes. She stood a little taller. She smiled more often. I began dressing up even when I was home alone, just to feel more confident during my mirror talks. It might sound silly, but it worked. I began feeling like a speaker, a communicator, a learner who was proud of herself. I also noticed something important. Because I was practicing daily with my mirror, my English thinking started to become more automatic. Instead of translating in my head, I was forming thoughts directly in English. Simple ones, of course, but still thoughts. It was like I had created a new voice inside my head, one that spoke to me in English and in kindness. And guess what? That kindness spilled over into the rest of my life. When I made mistakes outside of my mirror, practiced during an English call, or when messaging someone in English, I stopped punishing myself. Instead of thinking, "Ugh, I'm so stupid," I thought, "It's okay. You're learning." Just like always. That shift in mindset changed everything. I was becoming emotionally stronger. I also started treating my mirror sessions like real coaching. I would pick one topic for the day, prepare a few notes, and give myself challenges. For example, today, use 5 new phrasal verbs in your mirror conversation. Try to describe a problem and offer a solution in English. Explain your opinion on a news story in 3 minutes. These little games made practice fun. And over time, I didn't need to write notes anymore. I was improvising in English. I wasn't afraid of making mistakes because I trusted myself to correct them or laugh them off. One day, I looked into the mirror and said, "You are your best teacher." I meant every word. The thing about learning a language is it's not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about confidence. It's about believing you deserve to speak, that your voice matters. And once I stopped waiting for permission from others and started giving myself permission, everything changed. I also used the mirror to prepare for real-world situations. Whenever I had an upcoming interview, a group discussion, or even just an online conversation, I would rehearse it in front of the mirror. For example, before a Zoom call with an English-speaking friend, I would say, "Hi, it's good to see you again. Yes, I've been working on a new project. Actually, I wanted to ask you something about pronunciation." Practicing these lines helped me enter the real conversation with less fear. My mind had already walked the path. And even if I forgot something or stumbled, I didn't panic. I had trained myself to stay calm. That's what a good coach does. They teach you to be strong in the moment. And that's what I had become for myself. The more I practiced, the more I wanted to help others feel this confidence too. I started sharing short clips of my mirror talks online, just for fun. At first, I was scared. What if people laugh at my accent? I thought, what if they say I sound weird? But I posted it anyway, and something beautiful happened. People began messaging me. "You inspired me to try this," or "I've been too scared to speak, but now I want to try using the mirror too." I cried, reading those messages, because I remembered how I had once been that person, scared, shy, silent, and now, here I was, helping someone else find their voice. That's when I realized, your progress can become someone else's hope. Looking back, I understand now that the mirror didn't just reflect my face, it reflected my effort. Every moment I chose to speak instead of staying silent. Every time I corrected my own mistake with a smile instead of anger. Every encouraging sentence I spoke, it all added up. The girl who used to whisper English under her breath now owned her voice. The mirror taught me discipline. It taught me patience. But more than anything, it taught me how to believe in myself. So if you're reading this, and you feel like you're alone on your English journey, let me tell you something from my heart. You are never truly alone. Your voice is with you. Your mirror is waiting. You don't need perfect grammar to begin. You don't need a fancy accent to sound beautiful. All you need is the courage to start. Speak, stumble, smile, and speak again. Because one day you'll look in the mirror and say, not just in English, but with pride, I did it. I became the person I always wanted to be. And it all started with a simple conversation with yourself.